On January 6, 2021, a large group of people who care passionately about the American Constitution arrived at the U.S. Capitol building. They came there because they believed that democracy was dying. They had concluded, based on mounting evidence, that the 2020 election had been subverted by the most powerful people in the country. They believed that election was neither free nor fair, and they were angry about it. A few of them, in their anger, broke windows and assaulted cops. Then they walked into the building, in many cases through doors that were being held open by law enforcement. Once they got inside, a Capitol police officer shot a military veteran to death in a doorway outside the Speaker's lobby. Her name was Ashley Babbitt. She was unarmed. She had no history of violence. That is a factual description of what happened on January 6th. But that is not how the day was described by the leadership of either political party in Washington or by their stenographers in the national media. Within hours, virtually everyone on television was calling January 6th an insurrection led by Donald Trump.
The president is accused of inciting a violent insurrection on the U.S. Capitol.
All of Washington is scared, and people are trying to figure out how to keep him from doing more harm to the country than he's already done by inciting that insurrection on Wednesday.
The violent attack on the U.S. Capitol was an act of insurrection.
The president incited an insurrection against Congress to prevent the peaceful transition of power.
A white supremacist president who incited a white supremacist insurrection.
All 50 states are under threat of armed insurrection by pro-Trump rioters.
We need to be focused on embracing the Constitution, not embracing insurrection.
I'm announcing that the House will be establishing a select committee on the January 6th insurrection.
You open the doors for them and let them breach the people's house. Donald J. Trump called for the insurrection against the United States of America.
This was pretty puzzling to watch. Whatever else January 6th was, and in some ways we still don't know exactly what it was not a Trump-led insurrection. The crowd had no guns. They had no plan to overthrow the government. Nothing like that has ever emerged. And above all, Trump was not leading it. He was miles away at the White House at the time, where he issued a public statement calling for calm and nonviolence. So why were the people on television telling us that Trump led an insurrection? This was, of course, a lie, but it was also a very obvious lie. So clearly we were watching the rollout of a talking point, words crafted for a specific purpose. But what was the purpose? We got an answer to that question yesterday when the Colorado Supreme Court ruled that because he led an insurrection, Donald Trump's name cannot appear on the state's ballot next fall. The 4 liberal judges who concluded this cited as their justification Article 3 of the 14th Amendment, which was written in 1868 to keep former Confederate officials from holding office. That was the sum total of their reasoning. Despite the fact Donald Trump has never been convicted by any court of insurrection, and although the 14th Amendment specifically does not apply to the presidency, Donald Trump cannot run for president because he's an insurrectionist. This seemed like lunacy, because it was lunacy. 3,000 miles away in El Salvador, there was no question about what was happening. The United States has lost its ability to lecture any other country about, quote, democracy, wrote Salvadoran President Nayib Bukele. And yet in this country, no one on the left dared say that. Instead, Donald Trump's enemies celebrated. The Atlantic magazine expressed gratitude that unelected judges had, quote, rescued the country from the desires of voters, because actually, that's democracy. And then there was Jena Griswold, that's the Colorado Secretary of State. You may not have seen her before, but you will instantly recognize the category she represents. Unhappy 39-year-old liberal women with Ivy League degrees and a deep streak of authoritarian impulses. Here's Griswold on MSNBC last night explaining that a conventional legal process is no longer necessary for the left to get its way. No more trials or evidence or jury verdicts. An accusation made on television is now enough to remove a frontrunner from the presidential race. If Nancy Pelosi and Joe Scarborough call you bad, Americans are not allowed to vote for you. Watch.
Look, I believe he incited the insurrection. There were big questions around Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, and the Colorado Supreme Court has weighed in a very loud way, making themselves clear. Frankly, we've never had a president try to steal the presidency and engage in insurrection ever before. So Trump's actions are unprecedented. The Colorado Supreme Court confirmed that the district court got it right, that he did engage in insurrection. I think Section 3 of the 14th Amendment has to apply to the presidency, because if not, it's a get-out-of-jail-free card. And in a country of laws where no man is above another, we can't have one office be able to do whatever they want when it comes to rebellion and then be able to be seated in office again.
None of this seems very American. All of it looks like the actual end of democracy. Where does this go? For perspective, we are joined by one of this country's wisest voices, Victor Davis Hanson. Professor, thank you so much.